Hello YouTube. Today we're going to discuss what makes a bodybuilder. There are many people who live, there are many people who are big and who are going to be muscular, but just because someone is muscular does not make them a bodybuilder. There is a certain type of look that makes the physique of a bodybuilder. And of course, there are different types of body types. I've discussed that, the limb length, the size of your frame, all of these things are going to dictate the way you can look. But unless certain people, I personally am convinced that no matter what cards you've been given at birth, you can still look like a bodybuilder. It's going to depend on the way you train. And I've discussed that before and I'll discuss it again. For me, tonnage is going to be more important than strength when it comes to hypertrophy of the muscles. But which muscles you choose to grow and where your priorities lay is going to be also very important. In my opinion, what makes the bodybuilder physique is the limbs. The limbs need to be muscular, they need to be big. There is no such thing as a bodybuilder with small arms. There are bodybuilders who have dominant triceps. There are bodybuilders who have lagging forearms, but there is no bodybuilder who has zero arm size. It doesn't exist. Some of them have shoulders so big that the rest of the arm looks small, but there is overall development in this area. And the same goes for the legs. It wasn't as correct back in the days because the legs weren't as important then. It was more of an upper body business, but they were still developed. Nowadays, some people say the legs are too big. I personally think there is no such thing as too big, as long as it's muscle and not fat. But this is what, for me, is going to determine whether I think someone is a bodybuilder or not. If I see someone with a big back, a big chest, but they have no arms, yeah, I'm going to think they're big, but I'm going to never assume they're a bodybuilder. And it's interesting to notice because bodybuilding in itself, at least natural bodybuilding, is not really represented on YouTube anymore. And it's been co-opted by the other disciplines where powerlifting, strongmen, all of these guys have sort of taken the reins where now people are going to go on a powerlifting channel to ask about muscle hypertrophy or to ask about physiques or what looks good. And I think we noticed that because if you look at the physiques of YouTube fitness, a lot of guys have a ton of trunk, they have a ton of legs, but the arms are a complete afterthought. And anyone who is seeking to reinstore a balance is my friend in this fight because you need to train your arms. All of that from here to here is what makes you as a bodybuilder. You need to develop it. You can have preferences. I have preference for the upper arm. I want the long head of the tricep and the bicep to be dominant, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to work the shoulder and the forearm. I still need them to be big. And if the bodybuilder physique, if the aesthetic physique is what you're shooting for, I really think that you need to put more effort and thought into training those parts. The legs are sort of different because if there's one thing that natural powerlifting has gotten down to a T, it's how to get big legs. Some of these guys have insane legs. They might not be super lean, but they have tree trunks. And the reason why they have tree trunks, in my opinion, is because the legs respond extremely well to compound movements, and you can get big legs with only compound movements. I think you can really develop the hamstring and the quads solely through them. The calves now, it's a different story. I think a lot of natural powerlifters, and I'm sort of the same, sadly, is that we don't have calves. And the worst part is that the upper leg is so big that it makes the calf look small. I'm working my butt off to catch up with my calves that I haven't trained for years. I wish I started training them when I first got in lifting, basically. And if you're watching this channel and you're interested in physiques, aesthetics, and bodybuilding, I plead with you to start working your calf early. When you're a novice and you're making strength gains, you don't have to, but once you're an intermediate, start working them immediately, because if not, you're going to regret it. But, in a sense, that physique that you're going to shoot for, if you consider yourself a bodybuilder, is going to be by default a bodybuilder physique. But there are certain things you really need to make sure that you don't commit, certain sins you need to avoid, and not working your limbs is one of them. You're going to end up with too big of a trunk, and it's going to make your limbs look even smaller. And I'll make videos about that. It's what I call the spider body. Guys who have massive chest and a lot of size here, and then they have spaghetti arms, so they look like a spider. I'll do my best to help you avoid that type of physique that is really not aesthetic. But yeah, for me at least, that's what bodybuilder proportions should be. Should be big limbs, small waist as small as possible. You have to work with what you've been given, a defined core, and it should look out of proportion. That's what being a bodybuilder is. If being a bodybuilder was looking like anyone else, it wouldn't be a sport in itself. It would just be called being normal. Being a bodybuilder is being abnormal, and you have to develop that, in my opinion, through proportions that make you look special. And for me, in everyday life, the one thing that people don't have is big arms. You can have big legs through genetic if they store a lot of fat. A lot of guys look big because they're just overweight and they stock all their weight here. But the arms are still spaghetti. Very few guys are strong fat with lots of size in their arms. So if you're natty and you go out there and you have like arms like this, you're already above the curve, and you're already, in my opinion, have a bodybuilder physique. So that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.